Yuri, and it's certainly a pleasure to be here and to bring some other thoughts forward around the study from a municipal perspective. And I do want to thank both Barry and I Canada and Fawn and IT World Canada for the leadership that they've shown in terms of undertaking this study for municipalities, and for the opportunity to be chair of the project committee that's overseeing the study. So this, if we can change the slide, please. This study will be the first syndicated study to examine open data for municipalities in Canada. In fact, if we look right now, 6 of the 10 largest Canadian cities already have open data portals today. And it's certainly not limited to them. In fact, some of the communities across the country that have already been leaders in open data include Vancouver, Calgary, Toronto, Ottawa, my own region, Waterloo Region, Montreal, Surrey, Mississauga, and others across the country. So it's something that's obviously a growing interest both for municipalities and for the citizens in all of our communities. The executive study that's going to be undertaken will really canvass 2 municipal groups. First of all, those over 50,000 in population, and secondly, those under 50,000 in population. We expect there will be some differences in the responses between the two and also the expectations of the community, but there will also be a fair number of similarities. So it'll be interesting to see how those responses come back. Next slide. In terms of key features of the executive study, there'll be really 7 primary areas of focus. The first one will be identifying municipal priorities when we're talking about open data. Secondly, we'll be looking at IT and service spending intentions. So trying to get an understanding of what are municipalities spending their dollars on when it comes to IT and other service delivery areas and how that affects open data. Thirdly, quantification of expected efficiencies. Obviously, this is an area that is of great interest to municipalities, particularly at a time of declining budgets. And so looking to see, what kinds of efficiencies might we be able in time to achieve that are going to have a benefit will obviously help shape, I think, to a certain degree, the speed at which this is adopted across the country. Fourthly, uses and applicability to municipal operations. So where does this make the most sense? I mean, we've seen applications across the country, for example, already that are using this with their transit systems, where the data is becoming available and people can find out instantaneously, where their bus is, when it's coming, is it running late, those kinds of things. The next 2 really are similar in a way, but buyer motives in the sense of the municipality and citizen-led motives. So what are some of the things driving this as a priority, both for municipalities and for citizens? What are their interests in terms of app creation and app purchase, and obviously, some of the purchasing around some of the technologies needed to support this. And finally, really the goal is to have a snapshot and an idea of some of the trending that's happening across the country in terms of who is doing what already and who plans to do something in the future. So in terms of study strategic insights, 5 areas here that we want to focus on. Community expectations. So in other words, what is the public expecting? This is really one of the driving forces, that anecdotally we've heard from communities that have taken the jump already in open data. What are some of the expectations from the public about the use of the systems and the data that's being talked about? What are the municipal needs, the kinds of systems that are expected to be on their priority purchase list? This is obviously of interest to some of the companies in the room here who potentially may want to support the study and its process, and we'll touch on that in a moment. But obviously, this is going to lead to purchase decisions by municipalities and hence is of interest to some of the corporations here. Thirdly, decisions. The reason some of the systems are chosen and others are not. So what is shaping municipalities' decisions that have already gone down this path? Fourth, best practices. Obviously, as we've heard countless times, I think, over the day today, we don't want to keep reinventing the wheel. So what are some of the best practices that have been learned from those who have been early adopters of open data in the use of the systems? And finally, getting some municipal profiles of municipal buyers and the services that they're going to seek going forward. Some concluding thoughts. The reality is, more and more, we're seeing greater degrees of urbanization globally. By 2050, 70% of the people on this planet will be living in urban municipalities, representing some 9 billion humans. Think about that. It's a huge number, and the shift that's happening every day. I just read something recently that's saying basically a city, the population of 1 million people, is being created each week between now and 2050 to get to that number. It's huge. So the need to respond to increasing public pressure for services isn't going to go away across the country. Open data is becoming one of the critical tools for service alignment and engagement with our citizenry, and most importantly for transparency and good government. So the reality is, this isn't a nice to have. I think local governments across this country need this study, and most importantly, we're going to need the participation of local governments across the country. I know some of the municipalities that are no doubt here in this room will be keen on getting involved, and they're probably going to be the ones that are easy adopters of participating, because you already are leaders in terms of IT. But others are going to need to be convinced, and I'll be looking to some of the municipal leaders in the room to help convince municipalities and their IT folks in those communities to participate, so that through this study we can help local governments and quite frankly help our citizens in delivering the services that we need. So our ask, ultimately we're going to want to fill out the advisory council. We're going to be looking for mayors from across the country, from different size communities, to potentially sit on the advisory council, as well as some IT professionals. And secondly, and most importantly, we're going to need industry support to raise approximately $190,000 to properly support the research and expose the findings throughout Canada and to all identified stakeholders. This is something that obviously Fawn and her very capable team, who does this on a regular basis at IT World Canada, is going to take the lead on and make happen. And then that information will obviously be available to municipalities and partners as we go along. So that would be the summary on the open data stuff, and I think we have a few minutes for questions, even though my clock has disappeared. So, thank you.
I want to thank Yuri and I want to thank Barry for helping out on this presentation.